Kelly's eyes opened and she realized she had been moved. This time she was in the kitchen sitting upright on the table. She saw that her ankles had been bolted down and her arms tied above her head. She saw that the pans used to hang there. Kelly looked around and felt still tired from last night. Edward walked into the room wearing the same thing he wore last night. A white shirt and Levi's. "Good morning," he said cheerfully. Rita and Sita walked in soon after with Katrina in hand. They forced her into a chair where they tied some straps around her wrists and ankles. "Get the box," Edward ordered. Sita skipped out of the room giggling as Rita hopped up and down. A few moments passed when Sita walked into the room with a double-stacked crate. Rita turned and took hold the side of Katrina's chair, and Sita took the other. Edward opened the box as the girls lifted the chair off the ground and into the box. Rita reached down into the box and untied Katrina's ankles and put them into slots in the lower half of the two stacked boxes. Edward shut and locked them, and Sita locked the top box around Katrina's head. Kelly had Katrina struggle against the chair, but she knew it did her no good. Sita stooped down and began to tickle Katrina's bare feet. Katrina laughed. Sita ran her nails up and down Katrina's two bare feet. As Rita stood by hopping pee and down giggling, Katrina shook her head and rocked back and forth as Kelly watched hopelessly. "Stop," Kelly begged. Edward stood by laughing and slapping his knee as both girls were dealt out this torture. Kelly squealed and moaned every inch Rita's fingers went on her feet. Katrina, however, was rocking so hard the whole box moved with it. Sita reached in and started to tickle between her toes, and Rita did the same. When Sita got through, she spread Katrina's toes out and licked in between. Kelly let her head fall backwards and gave in to the torture. Her feet were being tormented, and her friend was getting the same torture. "I wasn't going to start the experiment until later today," Edward said an hour after the second tickling occurred. Kelly and Katrina now were sitting side by side with their hands tied behind their backs and their feet strapped to a chair in front of them. "I was going to just tickle you today, Katrina," Edward said. "Don't do me any favors," Katrina said. "I know you're upset, but it's all in the good name of science," Edward said. Kelly perked up. "If we help you, will you let us go?" Kelly asked. "That never occurred to me," Edward said. "What?" Katrina asked. "Letting you go," Edward said. Katrina and Kelly's heart sank. Sita and Rita walked into the room with their hands behind their backs. "Today we decided not to tie you to a stock like last night," Edward said. "Well, I know what I'd do if one of them was tied to a stock," Kelly said. "That's not a bad idea," Edward said. Rita ran forward, her hands still behind her back. "Please let me be the one," she begged, but Sita was on her knees. "No, me. I haven't been tickled in 2 days," she said, making a whimpering sound. "Very well, Sita, but the tickling will be controlled and tomorrow," Edward said. "Until then it's time to tickle," Edward said, clapping his hands together. Rita and Sita pulled their hands out and showed that they were holding 2 feathers, one for each hand. Rita stooped next to Kelly and Sita next to Katrina. "Begin," Edward said, sitting in an armchair that faced the 4 girls. Both Rita and Sita ran the feathers down the girls' ticklish feet. Every passing stroke meant any second an explosion of laughter was to follow. The girls rocked back and forth in hopes to keep the tickling from being too bad. But it was useless. Every passing moment was worse than the last until Katrina cracked a smile and burst into laughter. Katrina laughed. Kelly noticed that Edward was writing now, instead of watching. He fixated on whatever he was writing. Kelly held her breath and thought of a way to escape the next day. But only one thought came to mind. Air was leaving her poor lungs, and Kelly had long stopped kicking her feet as she let it all out. Kelly laughed. Rita seemed pleased that she finally got her laugh out of Kelly. "That's enough," Edward said, standing up. Rita and Sita stood and untied Kelly and Katrina. "Take them to their rooms, they need rest for tomorrow," Edward said. We turned to the left to leave when Katrina fell to her knees and grabbed Edward around his legs. "Please let me join you," she begged. Kelly stood where she was, her eyes wide. "What?" Edward asked. "Please let me join you. I love tickling too," she said, reaching up to tickle his belly, but he stepped back in time. "Excellent. Sita, take Katrina to your 2 rooms and break her in. Rita, take Kelly to her room." Rita hopped up and down until she roughly grabbed Kelly and led her up the stairs. When they reached her room, Kelly spotted the stock she was tied to yesterday. Kelly started to walk toward it, but Rita pulled her toward a closet. Opening the door, Kelly spotted a pole hanging from it. She was quickly latched to it. To be continued.